Seb, good morning. How are you, friend?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you? How are you holding up?
Well, not too bad. My wife cut my hair. It didn't work out too well, so I had to go to backup measures, and yeah, so it
I'm debating doing the same.
seems to be a popular haircut right now. I have a question
Yes,
for you.
go
With
ahead.
respect to, I wrote down a couple questions here. So with respect to how can I rent my condo out? Like if a client's asking you, how can I rent my condo out? Who's going to assist with this? Why don't I just lease it on my own? Why don't I just put up an ad and meet with tenants? What would be the benefit of leasing their condo through a realtor?
Thanks for the question, Elliot. When a client usually generally asks me this sort of question, I've done hundreds of leases in my 6-year career here. We've seen all sorts of tenants, all sorts of credit reports, all sorts of vetting processes I've been through. So we know what to look for when we're leasing out the unit. Also, if you want maximum exposure for your unit, you want to make sure you use a realtor to put it on the MLS program, MLS service for you. So basically, we take the full reins. It's a hands-off approach for yourself, for the client. So we go through the whole process from photography to putting it up on the MLS, all the way down to vetting the tenant, confirming employment letters, credit scores, making sure everything is in order.
Hmm.
Apart from that, we want to make sure that all the new Residential Tenancy Act rules are being followed, and we collect the checks on your behalf as well.
Hmm.
And the process is very seamless and hands-off for the client when working with a realtor.
Nice. I think that's a good point because in 2018, the changes to the Residential Tenancy Act came into place. There's new paperwork to be done on leases now. There's new rules about what you can and cannot ask for. So I think that's it's important that you use somebody who knows the process and who's done it a bunch of times. Okay, so if I'm out of options, or if your customer's out of options to be able to close on a pre-construction unit, they're unable to get a mortgage, what should they do? Do they have any exit strategies?
Yes, at that point, you want to maybe look at an assignment process, see if it makes sense. If a closing is not possible whatsoever, then that would be the safest way out of your contract without breaching the contract. Assuming the builder allows for assignment, you want to make sure that all your costs will be covered, right? You had a client recently, I believe, at Charisma Condos, where they just had that exact situation where they just wanted out of the deal, right? Because they were unable to close or what have you. So if that happens, you want to look into the assignment provision of the contract and make sure that current market value allows for a sale at or as close to your previous purchase price as possible, right? To help mitigate any potential losses that you may see, right?
Nice.
So Vuk, yeah. So I have my unit. The closing is next month, in a month. So first question for it: do you think it's do we have sufficient time to post it, rent it out? Would we be able to find a good tenant in a month? What you guys what's your strategy? What you guys use to make sure that I don't lose months after months of the vacant unit? That's my first question. The second, what do you think if we need to list it? Do we go above market value, on the market value list? I hear it from friends who's as well realtors, even though I bought my unit through you, but they told me you go below market value, so you have more offers, or if you go above market value, you might not get any showings or viewing. Is that true? What you guys usually do? That's my questions.
Pre-construction or resale? You're closing in a month.
Pre-construction.
Okay, so you're closing in a month, and you want to know, can we make sure that it's filled immediately so you don't lose any time? And then number two, when we list it, do we list it under market rent or above market rent? And what's the strategy, correct?
Correct. Very correct.
Okay, so what we would do is we would begin by absolutely listing your property now for rent. We would use whatever information we have. So that would probably be the floor plan, the layout, information on the building. We would put that up on multiple channels that we use. So one of them would be the MLS. We would also put it up on various open free sources such as Kijiji, Facebook Marketplace. We would use our internal marketing team to also put together certain material that we would send out to our previous clients who are potentially looking for rentals, or they may know somebody who's looking for rental. So we would use those channels to get the word out there ASAP. In terms of how we would price it, right now the market is a little bit different than it was 2 months ago. Maybe 2 months ago it made sense to underprice something and expect that interest and the volume of offers. Things are a little bit different now. So I would say we would do a comparative market analysis to see where the rents have been in the last 2 weeks, because that is the newest data. We wouldn't be relying on 2-3 month old data. And then we would make a determination. My initial strategy would be to place it a little bit, either at market rent or a little bit below market rent, because that also goes into how quickly will you rent it out. So if you're okay taking a bit of a discount to make sure that you don't have to carry an empty unit, then I would suggest that we do that. And that way you have a good tenant. We'll make sure that it's the right tenant. We'll go through our process of vetting them, putting them in place, and then you can rest easy. You can sit back and just collect the rent and let us take care of the difficult work for you.
Perfect. You know what? Just something new came up to my mind. If you don't mind, if I can ask a question again, or one more question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you will be using multiple channels along with the MLS. So let's say if you got a client through the Kijiji, Facebook, whatever, would he be as well falling under the same screening as you do with another client comes through a different agent? How would you screen them?
Yes, absolutely. So the difference between somebody private and somebody coming through a realtor is that we would do the screening. So we would be asking that person directly for their employment letter, for recent paychecks. We would be performing the credit check and the reference check. When a client comes through with another agent, then we usually ask the agent what that person's qualifications are to be a rental. So there's a little bit of less screening when it comes to the agent coming through, because we as agents, we kind of rely on each other for information. Not to say that we won't also do our due diligence, but if somebody's coming with their agent, then we expect that person has been through some sort of vetting process. But it all really depends, who the person is and what their qualifications are. And then we'll go through the same vetting process, whether it's an individual off Kijiji or if it's somebody coming through the multiple listing service.
Perfect. Thank you.
Elliot, hope you're doing well. We're going to hit you with a quick question.
Right.
This is a 1-minute question. When is the best time for me to sell my pre-construction condo that is closing the end of this year?
Okay. You can sell it before closing. It's called an assignment, right? When you're transferring the right to close on the property to another buyer, or you can close on the property and then list it for sale in the resale market. So whether or not you want to dispose of the property now is going to depend on your personal situation. There's 1,000 different scenarios, so I can't really answer when it.
What if I want to realize the most amount of profit? Which will get me the most amount of profit considering the market's moving at a steady rate?
Well, I would have to take a look at the purchase agreement and determine if you sell before closing, there are certain deductions that you need to make on the assignment sale in your net sheet. So I would draw two different net sheets for your client, or you, if you're the client, a net sheet for the assignment sale, and then a net sheet for a resale transaction 1 year or a year and a half down the road. We can make projections, different deductions on each side.
What's different in between me selling it as resale versus me selling it as an assignment in terms of deductions? What are the additional deductions on an assignment versus resale?
Right. So the deductions on an assignment versus resale are, one, there's HST. So the total money that you're getting in an assignment transaction from the buyer, which includes your original deposit paid and the markup, your profit. That whole amount is HST taxable at 13%. That's the difference. So there's the HST component, but what you're saving on that is the closing costs. You don't need to close. You don't need to pay if it's a property. You don't need to outlay the HST at closing for the rebate amount. The difference is, if you want to boil it down, is whether the HST on the assignment amount is going to be higher than your closing costs. And that's one that you can look at. If the closing costs are going to be $75,000 and you don't have those $75,000 and you would rather not take the mortgage, then sure, let's take a look at assignment. Let's draw up a net sheet for that and see if it makes sense.
So disadvantage of assigning, I guess one of the disadvantages of assigning is the HST you pay on your profit plus your deposit. And then the disadvantage in selling in year one, in this case, would be you not being eligible to claim your HST rebate back because you didn't have it rented for a 1 year period. So this moves us to, let's say we're on day 380 after being registered and the place has been rented for a year.
Yep.
How are things looking at that point in terms of selling?
Well, it's a case by case. We're talking about situations in the market, particular times. Like, again, all I'm doing is looking at the months of inventory. I'm looking at the absorption rate of condos for that area for that time. For instance, 2 months ago, before COVID-19, there might have been, let's say, 700 properties for sale in downtown Toronto, MLS zones C1 and C8. But over the last 30 days, there were 590 sales, right? So the inventory is this and the sales are that. So it's a division problem where it's taking 1.2 months. If new listings stopped, it's taking 1.2 months for the entire inventory to sell through to zero. Whereas right now, I checked this morning, there's about 860 condos available for sale in downtown Toronto. And if the number that have been sold over the past 30 days is only 150, it's almost 5 months of inventory.
Yeah.
So that's all we're doing. We're looking at what the market
that
is
changes the dynamics
at point in time in 368 days.
Well, for argument's sake, what if the market is the same? The market dynamics and conditions and absorption rates are the same throughout the assignment, selling in the first year or selling after the first year. Which period would you pick if everything else remained the same?
If you can close on the condo, sure, close on the condo. The thing with an assignment sale is that you do need, and I counsel my clients and let them know that for these things to sell, they need to be priced competitively. And that's because the buyer needs to bring a larger sum of money to purchase an assignment as opposed to a resale property. So if you bought for 400, right, and then we're asking 650, well, the buyer is going to need to pay the 250 markup plus the 80K original amount. So the total payment to you in that situation is what, $330,000?
So you're looking for a cash heavy buyer who's looking for a deal.
Yes, you need a cash heavy buyer. And so in lieu of that, it can't be priced at resale or above resale. Typically an assignment needs to be priced below market. Just below. I'm looking at, if I want to pick something up, or my client wants to pick something up, I'd like to pick something up for 10% under market value. That's a great deal. That's a good benchmark to go with. And then of course,
the 10% will be you hedging your bet, and
Yeah, and then where on the other hand, if you're representing the seller, you'd like to get an amount for them that's as close to resale as possible, maybe a few points under resale, and that's a win for the seller.
Understood. Understood. Okay.
All right. The question is this. So I'm an investor, and I bought a pre-construction 2 years ago, and I've still got 2 years to go in the construction. At this point, I'm looking at my options. So can you tell me what are the benefits of me selling now as an assignment versus selling it when it's built within the first year, or waiting after a year to sell it? Are there benefits or advantages? And if there are benefits, what are they?
Sure. So to know when to sell a property, especially in pre-construction, first you have to have the right to assign that property, and that's the permission you get from the builder before starting to decide to sell or not at that point. Second, it's all market dependent. If the property at this point in today's market it has a increased in value, is there profit for you in it? And also we take to check all the expenses that you have to look at while assigning a unit. You have to look at the expenses come with the assignment regardless, the expenses that comes with the sale of a property, regardless if it's an assignment or after closing for 1 year or after closing for 2 years and after. The best that we have seen in how what it works in terms of value at time of selling and benefits is you close on the property, rent it for a couple of years, and if you want to sell it after, we have seen the best profit within that time, especially after closing that you have built quite a bit of equity in a property. You can always leverage that equity in the property and use it to invest in another property.
What are the tax implications of doing like selling it assignment, selling it within the first year, or selling it after the first year?
Sure. So I'm no tax expert, nor an accountant, nor a lawyer. However, don't laugh, Seb. I have to put the disclaimer.
Yeah.
There are different components of tax implications when you sell an assignment, that different types of HST that you have to prepare for, and also capital gain that needs to be paid for. We do have a great presentation that was done by Elliot McGregor that implements the tax expenses when it comes to assignment. I'll be more than happy to share them with you. So to answer the expenses that come with an assignment, if you look at this page here prepared by Elliot McGregor at Big City Realty, thank you, Elliot, for this. This is an example of a property, of a project that we had worked on. It's called Panda Condominiums in Yonge and Dundas, near Eaton Center Mall. So this project was sold in 2017, if I'm not mistaken. It's a 1-bedroom unit of 489 square feet that the original purchase price was for $536,900. The assignment value in, according to this, was done early 2020, was at $600,000, and the deposit paid at 20%, $107,000. The total payment that will go from the assignee to the assigner, so from the second buyer to the first buyer, is $170,480. Now, the deductions are quite detailed in this as well, and a lot of the assigners or assignees don't take this into consideration if they are not being consulted by a proper realtor or real estate lawyer. So first of all, that you have to pay is the commission to agents, including HST. Assignment fee that goes to the builder, and every builder has a different assignment fee, so we have to look into the agreement for that. It varies from $2,000 to $5,000, $6,000. The HST on the deposit that will be accepted by the assigner, and that is 13% on the total deposit. Capital gain tax and original deposit that was made. So the net profit on this assignment is not profitable. It's minus $4,400. When to look if we're going to assign your unit today or not, we have to take into consideration all these deductions and then see if the profit is worth it for you to assign or not. Any questions here, Brooke?
So you do a net sheet when you're evaluating whether or not it makes sense for a client to assign their property, right? And
of course, and it's always in today's market. So no one has a crystal ball to tell you what the market is going to be in 2 years. However, we have learned from the past on the pattern of a 5% conservative increment per year in the pre-construction or generally in the real estate market of 5% growth.
So if you go to the next page, if you go to the next slide, right, you're going to be able to see an example of an assignment proposition
that's profitable,
where the guy is making a little bit of money, right? And
a
these
little
tax
bit.
numbers, yeah, the tax numbers are just, they're estimates. They're
Yes.
estimates at a 20% or a 25% marginal rate, whatever I put, but it's just, it's rough. Yes, no, we're not providing legal, tax, or environmental advice. But this is what it is, right? There are deductions, and if you can roughly spell it out for the client, that's what you want to do, and they can say, okay, this is going to be my situation, like if I go through with this, and then, you know, educating them.
And if you have to unload the property for any other things are happening in your life, and life happens, there's no it's absolutely doable. You know, you have to look at just make sure that you're making a little bit of money at the end of it, and if you have to take the loss at that point, depending on the situation, if it's a life and death situation and not doable, then you got to move forward after that.